Hi there, my name's Isaac Morrow. I'm here to tell you about an experience I had a couple months ago. But first, a little background on me. I was born in the rural mountains of West Virginia, near Huntington. As I grew up, I became more and more interested in the ocean and how little we know about it. I would beg my mother to buy me books about the ocean and its creatures just so I could know everything there was to know. At age 13, my mother bought me scuba diving lessons for my birthday. I was so excited that I tripped off the boat. As I got older, I went to college and majored in marine biology, and after college, I was recruited by a marine research company called Blue Water. They asked if I would help research new species of sea creatures just by diving into the water with a team of other like-minded scientists. I excitedly agreed and began work. My team consisted of me, the lead scientist, Jake, our engineer, Alice, our radio operator, and the driver/navigator of our small research boat. That boat was her baby, and if you mistreated it, then God have mercy on you. Then we have Quest, who, like me, goes nerd crazy over the ocean. He helps me do research and collects samples with me. Finally, we have Morgan, who's the security of our team. He's a retired Navy SEAL and the oldest of our team. He keeps pirates and ocean creatures from intervening with our voyages. I worked with my team for 6 months before we began that voyage. That day, I was asked to research a deep-sea trench that was found in the middle of the Atlantic. They even provided some new experimental diving suits called Kraken. They reminded me of these spacesuits the astronauts wore. The suit's relatively slim and looks like a bulky diver's suit. The hardened glass helmet would attach to the suit and was equipped with communication headsets, lights, and an oxygen recycler, as well as being able to withstand immense pressure and could withstand being pierced by rocks. It was a technological wonder. On July 20th, 2024, our research boat, respectively named Atlas, arrived above the trench. We immediately began to put on our gear, eager to start. Everyone would be diving except Alice, who would stay on board and take care of the comms. We all got into the dive, and after a quick comms check, we dove into the deep blue water, my last glimpse of the surface being Alice saluting us jokingly. We immediately started swimming towards the trench.
Whoa, this thing is massive,
said Quest.
Yeah, it is. Everyone make sure to be careful. I don't want anyone sinking too far into that thing.
I said. I was the first to enter the trench and began slowly sinking deeper and deeper. The darkness began to creep its way over my visor, and I began seeing bright beams of light pierce the blackness. People had begun to switch on their lights. I reached up and flipped the switch on the side of my helmet. I immediately saw teeth appear in front of me.
Ah!
I screamed, before realizing that it was an anglerfish calmly swimming by. I heard Jake snicker over the comms. We glided down about 5,000 meters before we reached a large shelf on the side of the wall. Everyone settled into the sandy floor and got their gear out.
Alice, do you copy?
I said, at first only hearing static was the response. Then Alice's voice crackled over my headset.
I copy you, Isaac. How's it going down there? Your suit sensor tells me you're 5,200 meters below sea level.
It looks incredible down here,
I said. I began to notice the fluorescent plants on the floor glowing brightly, illuminating small brown crab-like creatures with huge eyes and small tendrils with spikes made out of some bone-like material. I began to see new creatures that I've never seen before. There was small fish with vampire-like fangs as big as my arm, and a huge undersea cucumber.
This is amazing,
said Quest in awe.
Boss, have you seen anything like this?
Morgan said, looking at the magnificent sight.
I've never seen anything this magnificent. Quest, start taking samples.
We began to cut pieces of the fluorescent plant when I heard Jake yell over the comms.
Ow!
I looked to see Jake bleeding slightly, but being sealed by the suit.
What happened? I picked that little crab thing up, and it sliced me with that tentacle thing it's got. Well, don't pick stuff up then.
Then I laughed. Suddenly, I caught movement from behind him in the darkness.
Wait, what was that?
I said, staring at the black abyss.
What do you mean?
Was all he said before a huge claw-like spear pierced his stomach. I stared in both awe and fear as the lobster-like creature as big as a bus appeared. I could hear Jake screaming through the comms before the creature opened its mouth and proceeded to bite down on Jake's helmet. With a sickening crunch, I could hear its teeth crush the helmet and pierce his skull before comms and his helmet were destroyed. His body went limp, signaling he had died. We all began screaming and backing away from the creature as it slowly dragged its lumbering body and Jake over the shelf edge and into the endless abyss, gone forever. I immediately called Alice.
Alice, do you copy?
Yeah, Isaac, what's up?
Something just took Jake and dragged him into the darkness. Jesus, it was huge. Oh my God, he's dead.
What? So he's gone?
Yes, he's gone. He's dead.
Okay, you guys need to come back up now.
Yep, that's the plan. Okay, everyone, we're headed up. Let's go.
I said. Quest and Morgan just stood there in shock, staring at a spot on the wall. I looked to see a huge hole with multiple bladed tendrils poking out. We stood there as still as possible before Morgan attempted to draw his knife. As quick as lightning, a tendril shot out across his body, effectively cutting him in half. There wasn't even a scream, just a small humph as he went limp and his body floated apart. The tendril snatched his torso and pulled it into the hole that it came from. I snapped out of my shock state and immediately swam to Quest and punched our emergency buttons on our suit. Our suits immediately began to inflate and we began to rise. As we sped to the surface, I heard Alice over the comms tell me that the Coast Guard were on their way. I breathed a sigh of relief. I then noticed that Quest hadn't spoken. I looked into his visor to see thousands of those brown, crab-like creatures filling the visor. I almost puked when I saw one come out of the mass with a severed eye. I turned away from the gruesome sight and looked towards the brightening sky. I'd never been more happy to see the sky in my entire life. I was finally free. I was finally safe. I breached the water to see Coast Guard ships beside the Atlas. I saw Alice standing there on deck, crying. I swam with Quest's body in tow. I boarded the ship and sat there, bursting into tears. I cried for hours as the images of my dead friends filled my head, haunting me. We traveled back to the research center and let the Coast Guard take over the expedition. Blue Water gave me a year's paid vacation for what happened that day. I still hadn't been able to go near the water since. Every time I look at the water and see those evil, twisted creatures lurking, waiting for the one that got away. We humans don't know a lot about the deep sea, but we do know one thing. God had abandoned it a long time ago.